Second Lieutenant Emma Carter, had survived training that broke most soldiers long before they ever saw combat. She had endured freezing drills in Alaska, desert survival in Nevada, and urban warfare simulations where every mistake was punished in seconds. But nothing in her training had ever felt like this. Nothing had prepared her for a jungle that seemed to breathe. The mission was labeled routine reconnaissance. That was the official word. In reality, Emma knew there was no such thing as routine. When intelligence involved an abandoned research zone deep in the Amazon basin. The place didn't even have a proper name on most maps, just a blank patch marked with warnings and redacted coordinates. Still, orders were orders. Her team had inserted at dawn. 6 soldiers total. By late afternoon, the jungle had already started acting strange. Comms became unstable first, short bursts of static, then silence between transmissions that grew longer each time. Satellite GPS flickered like a dying light. Even compass readings began to drift slightly off true north. At first, they assumed interference. By sunset, they weren't assuming anything anymore. They were reacting. Then came the storm. It didn't build slowly like normal tropical weather. It arrived like something had torn open the sky. Rain slammed down in thick sheets. Thunder rolled so low it felt like it was inside the ground itself. Trees bent violently under wind that shouldn't have been possible in a dense jungle canopy. Emma remembered the exact moment everything changed. A distorted voice through her radio. Extraction delayed, visibility compromised, hold position near marker. Then, a sound like metal twisting. And silence. She had called back immediately. Repeat last transmission. Nothing. She tried again. Static. Then nothing at all. That was the moment she knew she was alone. The rest of her unit had vanished from communication in less than 30 seconds. Emma Carter stood under the thick canopy now, drenched, her tactical gear heavy with rainwater. Her boots sank slightly into the wet earth with every step. The jungle around her was alive in a way that felt wrong, too quiet between storm bursts, too still when lightning flashed. She checked her rifle again. Magazine full. Safety off. Finger disciplined. But her eyes kept moving. Something about this place didn't feel like standard wilderness. It felt aware. A gust of wind moved through the trees, carrying a low, unnatural sound, like distant breathing filtered through endless leaves. Emma paused. She wasn't new to paranoia, but she was trained to recognize patterns. And this wasn't random. This was directional. She slowly turned her head. Nothing visible. Only shadows layered on shadows. Her radio crackled once in her hand. She grabbed it instantly. Bravo team, respond. Static. Then, a faint voice, broken, distant. Carter, don't stay there. Her grip tightened. Identify yourself, she demanded. No answer. Just interference. Then the voice returned again, weaker. Move north, don't follow sound. And it cut out. Emma froze. That wasn't her squad. But it was military frequency. Which meant someone else was still in the jungle. Or had been. A cold realization settled in her chest. She adjusted her compass. North was unstable. The needle trembled slightly, refusing to settle properly. That's not possible, she muttered. A second later, a sharp crack echoed through the trees. Emma dropped instantly into a crouch. Silence followed. Then another crack closer. Her training took over. Don't react to noise. Confirm threat, observe first. She raised her rifle slowly, scanning through the darkness between trunks. Nothing. Then movement. High left. something shifting through branches. Too smooth for wind. Too deliberate. Emma tracked it carefully, finger resting just outside the trigger guard. Another movement, lower this time. Right flank. She was being circled. Her pulse stayed controlled, but her senses sharpened to an edge. "Animals don't coordinate like this," she whispered. The jungle answered with another sound. A low growl. Not loud, but close. Too close. Emma stepped backward slowly, trying to maintain spacing between threats. Her boot hit something soft, fallen vines or mud, but she didn't look down. Looking down meant losing sight of the dark. And darkness here felt like it moved faster than light. A sudden rustle behind her made her spin instantly. She fired a warning shot. Crack! The muzzle flash lit up the jungle for a split second. What she saw made her blood run cold. Eyes. Not one pair. Several. Low. Surrounding her. Every direction. She had walked directly into a ring. Emma backed toward a fallen log, breathing controlled but sharper now. Sweat mixed with rain on her face. The jungle had stopped feeling like environment. It felt like a system. A closed system. And she was inside it. Another growl echoed. Closer. Then another. And another. The ring was tightening. Her radio crackled again. This time louder. "Carter, if you can hear this, do not engage." The voice broke. Then continued. "Something is tracking movement patterns. It's not natural." Emma swallowed hard. Not natural. She already knew that. A branch snapped above her head. She looked up. Too late. Something dropped from the canopy. Vast. Heavy. Emma rolled sideways instantly as the shape hit the ground where she had been standing, exploding dirt and wet leaves. She raised her rifle. But whatever it was had already moved back into the darkness. Vast. Too fast. A second later, a distant scream echoed through the jungle. Not human. Not entirely animal either. Emma stood still now, realizing something terrifying. This wasn't just hunting. This was testing her. The jungle wasn't attacking randomly. It was learning her movements, her reactions, her survival patterns. Another flash of lightning lit the canopy. For a moment she saw them clearly. Circling. Multiple shapes. Not just predators. Something else mixed in. Something that didn't belong in any natural ecosystem she had studied. Emma lowered her stance slightly, shifting her grip on the rifle. "If this is a trap," she said quietly, "then I change the rules." Thunder rolled again. And deeper in the jungle. Something answered her voice. Emma Carter didn't move for 3 full seconds after the jungle answered her voice. Not an echo. Not wind. An answer. A low, distorted growl rolled through the trees, vibrating through the wet air like something massive dragging its breath across miles of forest. Her finger tightened slightly on the trigger. This wasn't a normal predator response anymore. This was acknowledgement. Like something had heard her and understood. She shifted her position slowly behind the fallen log, keeping her profile low. Rainwater dripped from the leaves above in uneven pulses, each drop sounding louder than it should have in the suffocating silence that followed the growl. Emma exhaled once, controlled, steady. "Don't think like prey," she whispered to herself. "Think like the battlefield." Another movement. Left flank. Then right. Then behind. She was no longer being circled randomly. The pattern had changed. Now it was coordinated. Emma adjusted her stance, scanning through her rifle sight. Her night vision gave everything a sickly green glow, but it also revealed motion too fast for the naked eye. Something was moving in sync. Two shapes broke cover at the same time, low, fast, silent. Emma fired instantly. Crack, crack. One shot connected. A sharp, unnatural screech tore through the jungle. The second shape vanished before impact. Emma didn't wait. She rolled forward out of her cover, breaking the encirclement before it closed fully. Mud sucked at her boots as she moved, but she kept momentum. "You want predictable movement," she muttered. "Wrong target." Behind her, the injured creature thrashed in the darkness. But what disturbed her wasn't the sound. It was what came after. Silence. Not retreat. Observation silence. Emma stopped mid-step. That wasn't fear. That was learning. Something out there was adjusting to her reaction time. She had seen this before in simulation warfare systems. AI training drones adapted to human movement patterns after repeated exposure. But this wasn't a simulation. A cold realization settled into her chest. "This is tracking me," she said under her breath. "Not chasing, tracking." A branch snapped sharply to her right. Emma didn't hesitate this time. She fired again. Bang! A shape dropped instantly from the canopy. Heavy impact. Leaves exploded outward. The body hit the ground with a wet thud. No movement after. Her first confirmed kill. Emma approached slowly, rifle raised. The creature lay twisted in the mud. But it wasn't a jaguar. Not fully. Its frame was too large, limbs slightly elongated, muscle structure wrong in places that didn't match natural evolution. Its fur was patchy, almost burned in sections, as if exposed to chemical or radiation damage. Emma stared at it for a moment, then stepped back. "This isn't just wildlife," she whispered. A crackle came from her radio again. Louder this time. Closer. "Carter, do you see them yet?" Emma froze. That voice. It sounded like Sergeant Mills. But Mills was on her squad, and her squad was gone dark hours ago. "Sergeant Mills," she responded carefully. A pause. Then static. Then, "Don't trust the canopy." Emma looked up instinctively. The jungle canopy above her was dense, layered, almost solid. Rain filtered through in thin threads of light, but now it felt different. Like something was behind it, watching from above. She lowered her gaze again slowly. "Where are you?" she asked. No answer. Then another voice broke through. Not Mills. Not anyone she recognized. A distorted whisper. "It learns faster when you speak." Emma stepped back immediately. Her breathing tightened. "Whoever you are," she said firmly, "identify yourself." The jungle responded instead. A low synchronized movement echoed around her. Multiple directions. Too organized. Too intelligent. Emma turned slowly in a circle. Left. Right. Behind. Above. Everywhere at once. "They're adapting," she realized. "They're mapping me." Another shape moved into view, this time not attacking immediately. It stayed at the edge of her sightline. Watching. Waiting. Emma raised her rifle, but didn't fire, because she understood something now. Every shot gave them data. Every movement taught them her limits. A flash of lightning illuminated the jungle for a split second. And in that instant, she saw them. Not just predators, not just animals, but a layered presence. Some biological, some altered, mixed into the jungle like it had been rewritten. Emma whispered, "This place isn't natural." The radio crackled again. A final message came through, cleaner this time, stronger. Project Lazarus is active. Emma's grip tightened. Repeat, Project Lazarus is active. Silence followed. Emma stood completely still. She had heard rumors during briefing. Something about a classified biological experiment that went wrong in a remote research facility. Official records sealed, personnel erased, entire region marked as hazardous. But no one had confirmed it. Until now. A branch snapped behind her. She turned instantly. Too late again. A massive shape lunged from the dark canopy above. Emma fired mid-roll. Bang, bang. One shot hit. The creature screamed as it crashed into the ground beside her. But it didn't die. It recovered. Fast. Too fast. Emma backed away, realizing the horrifying truth. It was adapting to damage. Pain wasn't stopping it. It was teaching it. She raised her rifle again, but stopped. Because now she saw something worse. The injured creature wasn't alone. More shapes were stepping into view. Not rushing. Not panicked. Coordinated. Emma's mind processed it instantly. This is a network. Not predators. Not animals. A system learning in real time. The jungle had become a single intelligence. And she had just proven she could be tracked. Emma took a slow step backward. Then another. Her voice dropped low. "All right," she whispered, "if you're learning me." She glanced into the darkness. Then I stopped being predictable. She reached for a flare in her vest. The jungle paused. Every sound stopped at once. Emma pulled the pin. For the first time, the jungle hesitated. And in that hesitation, she disappeared into the darkness. The flare burst open like a miniature sun. Crimson light exploded through the jungle canopy, painting every leaf, branch, and shadow in violent red. For one brief moment, everything was visible. And everything stopped. Emma Carter didn't wait to see what reacted. The instant the flare ignited, she moved. Vast. Low. Unpredictable. Behind her, the jungle didn't immediately respond. That alone was new. Before, it reacted instantly to her movements. Now it hesitated, like it was processing the sudden change in input. Emma slid under a thick root system, boots splashing through shallow mud. The flare's glow pulsed behind her, casting long, shifting shadows that danced between the trees. And then she saw it. Dozens of eyes. Frozen. Not retreating. Observing. Emma's breath tightened, but her mind stayed locked. "This is a system," she whispered, "not instinct learning." The flare began to fade. The red glow dimmed. And the jungle started moving again. But differently. Slower. More deliberate. Like something had recalculated her value as a target. Emma switched off her flashlight completely and relied on memory and terrain. Every step mattered now. Every sound mattered more. A twig snapped somewhere behind her. She didn't turn. She didn't fire. She waited. Then, nothing. That was worse. Because silence now meant processing. Emma adjusted her route, moving diagonally through thick vegetation. Her boots barely made sound anymore. She controlled her weight distribution like she had been trained for urban infiltration. But this wasn't urban terrain. This was alive. And it was adapting to her discipline. A sudden vibration came through the ground. Low. Rhythmic. Not footsteps. Coordination. Emma froze. "They're sinking," she muttered. Then she made a mistake. She looked back. Just for half a second. And in that half second, the jungle responded. Multiple shapes launched forward at once. Not random, not chaotic, synchronized. Emma rolled sideways as something massive crashed into the ground where she had been standing. Dirt and wet roots exploded outward. She fired instinctively. Bang! A hit. But again, it didn't stop. It recovered mid-motion. Emma backed into a narrow gap between two trees, using them as a choke point. Her breathing was controlled, but her eyes were sharper now. They don't stop on damage, she realized. They adjust through it. Another shape appeared at her left. Then right. Then above. Emma didn't fire. She waited, because firing now meant feeding the system more data. Instead, she moved. Vast. Unpredictable. She darted forward through a gap as one of the creatures lunged. It missed by inches, crashing into the tree behind her. Emma didn't look back. But she heard it. The sound of impact being analyzed. The jungle wasn't just attacking. It was testing reaction timing. Measuring delay. Emma skidded down a slight slope, landing near a shallow stream. The water moved fast, reflecting fractured moonlight through broken canopy gaps. She paused only long enough to assess direction. Then she saw it. Footprints. Not hers. Fresh. Leading parallel to her path. Someone else was here. Emma narrowed her eyes. Survivor or bait, she muttered. The radio crackled again. Stronger this time. Closer. Harder. Her body stiffened. That voice again. Sergeant Mills. Impossible. Mills, she answered sharply. A pause. Then, don't follow the river. Emma turned immediately toward the stream. Her instincts screamed at her. She stepped back, but the jungle reacted instantly. From the canopy above, something dropped directly into the water ahead of her. A massive splash. Emma raised her rifle. Too late. The impact sent ripples across the entire stream, distorting reflections. The water itself became a signal trigger. The jungle responded immediately. Multiple shapes moved in from all sides. Vast. Coordinated. Emma realized what had happened. The water, its tracking vibration spread. She backed away from the stream instantly. But now she had been marked. Every direction lit up with movement. Emma sprinted into dense foliage, pushing through vines and roots as branches whipped past her face. Her lungs burned, but she didn't slow. Behind her, the jungle accelerated. Not randomly. Systematically. She was being rooted. Not chased. Directed. Emma burst into a small clearing and stopped dead. 3 creatures stood there. Waiting. Blocking her path. Not attacking. Waiting. She slowly raised her rifle. But something felt wrong. These weren't rushing predators anymore. They were positioned. Like a perimeter check. Emma's heart slowed for a fraction of a second. This is containment, she whispered. A low mechanical-like sound echoed through the jungle. Not organic. Not animal. Something deeper. From everywhere at once. The creatures in front of her didn't move. They were holding position. Observing. Emma slowly stepped backward. And the moment she moved, they moved too. Not to attack. To maintain distance. Her stomach dropped. They're not hunting me anymore, she said quietly. They're containing me. A deeper realization followed immediately. They're hurting me. The jungle wasn't trying to kill her. Not yet. It was guiding her somewhere. Emma turned sharply and saw it. Between the trees. A faint structure. Metal, hidden, half consumed by vines. A facility. Emma's breath caught. That's where this started. Behind her, movement increased. The containment perimeter was tightening. She had two choices: turn back into the hunting zone, or move forward into the unknown facility. Emma lowered her rifle slightly. Her voice was calm now. "All right," she whispered, "let's see what you built." And she stepped into the darkness toward the structure, while the jungle quietly followed her in perfect synchronization. Emma Carter stepped into the shadows of the half-buried structure, and the jungle behind her didn't follow immediately. That alone told her something had changed. The perimeter creatures stopped at the tree line. Not attacking, not retreating, waiting, like they weren't allowed past a boundary. Emma tightened her grip on her rifle and moved forward. The structure was older than it looked at first glance. Metal panels were warped, swallowed by roots thick as cables. Vines hung from broken beams like decayed wiring. Whatever this place had been, it had not been abandoned quickly. It had been left to rot while still alive. A faded symbol was partially visible on one wall. 3 overlapping circles inside a triangle. Beneath it, barely readable text. Project Lazarus. Emma exhaled slowly. So it's real. The jungle behind her shifted again. Not closer this time, but coordinated, as if reacting to her entering a restricted zone. Emma moved deeper into the structure. Her boots echoed faintly against metal flooring that had partially collapsed into earth. The air changed immediately, less humidity, more chemical residue, old disinfectant, burnt wiring, and something else. Decay mixed with something organic. A corridor stretched ahead, dimly lit by emergency strips that still flickered after years of abandonment. The lights weren't steady, they pulsed like a weak heartbeat. Emma paused near a broken doorway. Inside a control room. She stepped in carefully. Screens lined the walls, most dead. A few still flickered with corrupted data streams. Tables were overturned, papers soaked into pulp, but one monitor remained partially active. Emma approached it slowly. The screen displayed looping footage. Jungle terrain. But not from her perspective. From above. Drone surveillance. And beneath it, data logs scrolling endlessly. Subject adaptation rate increasing. Target response mapping complete. Environmental integration 87%. Emma frowned. What did they do here? She tapped a key on the console. The screen shifted. A classified file opened. Project Lazarus, final phase. Emma's eyes scanned quickly. Objective: develop autonomous bioadaptive battlefield intelligence capable of learning enemy movement patterns in real time through environmental assimilation. She froze. Bioadaptive intelligence. Not machines. Not AI in the traditional sense. Something alive. The logs continued. Failed containment resulted in full jungle integration. Host ecosystem now functions as distributed neural network. Emma stepped back slightly. That's impossible. A sudden sound echoed behind her. Metal scraping. Slow. Deliberate. Emma turned instantly. Nothing in the doorway. But the lights flickered. And in that flicker, she saw movement outside the facility windows. Not creatures, not predators, but shapes moving in formation. Emma whispered, "They're not outside anymore." The radio on her vest crackled violently. Loud, almost painful. "Carter." She grabbed it immediately. "Mills," she snapped. A long pause. Then, "You shouldn't have come inside." Emma's grip tightened. Mills, if you're alive, where are you? Silence. Then a new voice layered over his. Not distorted this time. Clear. Clinical. Lieutenant Carter. Emma froze. That voice wasn't human fear. It was controlled. Measured. She responded carefully. Identify yourself. The voice continued. You are inside a closed learning system. Your survival is statistically improving the model. Emma's blood went cold. The jungle is a model. Correction, the jungle is the model. A loud metallic groan echoed through the facility. The walls vibrated slightly. Emma backed toward the exit. What happened to the personnel here? A pause. Then, integrated. Emma stopped. Integrated how? The screen in front of her shifted again. A live feed activated. And Emma saw it. Not footage. Not simulation. Reality. The jungle outside. But now it wasn't just trees and animals. It was layered. Subtle movement patterns repeating across different zones. Creatures positioning themselves in calculated arcs. Environmental responses aligning with her last known movement history. Emma whispered, "It's predicting me. It is learning you." A loud crash came from deeper, inside the facility. Emma spun toward the sound. Something was moving through the structure now. Inside. Not outside. The containment had been broken. Or rather, she had been guided in. Emma stepped backward slowly. "You brought me here," she said quietly. The voice responded instantly. Correct, entry was required for final calibration. Emma raised her rifle. Calibration for what? The answer came after a short pause. Too short. As if it already knew she would ask. Elimination of unpredictability. The lights in the facility suddenly shut off. Complete darkness. For half a second, absolute silence. Then, movement. Vast. Inside the structure. Emma fired immediately into the darkness. Bang, bang. A screech echoed through the corridor. But it didn't stop moving. Emma turned and ran. The facility corridor opened into a larger chamber, collapsed ceiling, roots hanging like veins. Emergency lights flickered back on in unstable pulses. And in those pulses, she saw them. Not just creatures, not just jungle predators, but integrated forms. Part biological, part structural, part something else entirely. Emma's breathing tightened. "This isn't a jungle anymore," she whispered. "It's a system." The voice returned one final time. Calm. Final. "Lieutenant Carter, you are the final input required for completion." Emma stopped at the edge of the chamber. The jungle was now inside the facility. The creatures weren't chasing her. They were arranging themselves. Around her. Perfect formation. Emma lowered her rifle slightly. Not surrender. Calculation. Then she spoke clearly into the darkness. "You built a learning system." A pause. She continued. "But you forgot something." Silence. The system responded. "Specify." Emma looked directly into the darkness and smiled faintly. "I'm not the same input twice." A second later, she triggered a demolition charge she had salvaged from her gear earlier. The device blinked red, then green. The system reacted instantly. Too late. The jungle outside surged toward the facility at once, but the interior was already unstable. Emma sprinted through collapsing corridors as alarms, long dead, somehow reactivated in distorted echoes. Behind her, the integrated system attempted to reroute, recalculate, adapt. But she was already gone. She exited through a side breach, just as the explosion tore through the structure. A massive shockwave lit the jungle in white fire. Trees bent outward. Creatures scattered violently for the first time, not coordinated, not controlled. Emma landed hard in the mud outside, rolling once before pushing herself up. She looked back. The facility was burning. The jungle was breaking formation. For the first time, it was confused. Emma stood slowly, rain starting again. She raised her radio one last time. Static faded. Then silence. She exhaled. System down. Behind her, the jungle was still alive. But now it was just a jungle again. Uncertain. Unfinished. And Emma Carter walked forward into the darkness. Not as prey. Not as data. But as the first anomaly the system could never learn.